everybody, welcome to my channel. This is a new channel that I created. I have another channel that I do, but this one's going to be strictly for tutorials, videos of like crafting cups, things with epoxy, basically just like crafts. I'm on a couple of crafting pages on Facebook, and I had a ton of suggestions to make a tutorial on the Freddy Krueger 3D cup. I apologize if I say a lot. I don't realize to do that until I do it. But I got a lot of suggestions to make a video, and asked like what video did I use to follow to make that cup, and to be honest, I couldn't find one. I saw people making them and I just jumped right into it, and I'm assuming that's what they did as well. I went on Google and I googled an image of Freddy Krueger's hand, and that video is what I used, or not the video, the picture that I found is what I used as my guide or my reference on how I wanted the hand to look. A lot of the images or a lot of people's cups that I've been seeing are beautiful, but I just wanted mine to be a little bit different, and so I wanted to try to go with more of a realistic look to it. And I'm just going to kind of go over how I did that. Ignore the white part right here and some of the white cracks in here. I did just apply the hand to this cup last night, and I did cut some pieces off, and I'm remolding some pieces just because I didn't like the way they were sitting on the cup. So you can do that, and I'll explain later on how. I'm just going to go over some supplies that I used first before we get into making the actual hand. The supplies I used, let's go with the cup first. The supplies was, this is a 20-ounce hog tumbler from Stainless Depot, and you can do any size that you want. Just remember that you want your hand to be proportionate with the size cup that you use. So I used a 20-ounce hog, and for the glitter, I'll go over the colors I used real quick. For the red, I used Grateful Glitter's Chili Pepper. And one thing really quick before I get into the next color, the green, I'm a crafter on a budget, and so if I don't have a particular color, I will mix glitters to make that color. And when I first did the first one, this isn't the original one, this is actually another one that I'm working on for an order, and the green that I was using kind of like, when I put it all together, looked just a little too Christmassy. And yeah, it looks Christmassy, but I darkened the green up. I used, this is Glitter Matters Yoda. I think this is a holographic one, but I still used it. I used the Yoda, and then I mixed some of the Evil from Glitter Matters as well. I mixed just a little bit, which is like a black, so it darkened up. It helped give the appearance that the green was a little darker, so it didn't look so Christmassy. And I believe I also added a little bit of the black inside the red as well, like in a little mini cup. Like I buy these little mini solo cups, and like they use for like little games and whatnot. And I use those sometimes for just to mix like little cups of mixed glitter to make a different color. So that's a suggestion. If you have green and you have like certain colors, but your green's a little too bright or your red's a little too bright, you can darken it up with a darker color. I do that a lot with a lot of my cups, where a lot of the glitters, people ask me, what did you use? It's a combination of a lot of colors I use just to get exactly what I'm looking for. So that's what I used for the cup, and then I applied the glitter with Modge Podge. So a lot of people ask me about how I got my lines and stuff so like good on the cup, and what I used is, so when I prep my cup, I literally just use the cup and I wash it with Dawn dish soap. I don't sand it, I don't do anything else to it. I literally just wash it really good with Dawn dish soap, let it dry, put it on my little cup tripod, and once it's completely dry and there's no water, I will go back over it with then I'll go and spray paint it. But in this situation, so I wanted to have it be just 2 of each color. So there's 1, 2, 3 lines. I used this skinny tape, which is like a nail design tape I bought like a gel nail polish, like UV light type thing set, and it came with like a lot of nail decorating kits, and they have like this really skinny tape. And I just put my circles, or I spaced my cup, went around with one line, then it went around with another line, and then it went around again, and then I went out and spray paint my cup. So when the spray paint was done and dried, I peeled my tape and I had like perfect like little white borders or white spaces for each glitter color. And then I just Mod Podged it. I did 2 layers of Mod Podge with 2 layers of glitter. And that gave me the coverage and everything that I wanted. I usually let mine dry a good day or so. I mean, Mod Podge for me, I feel dries pretty fast, but for it to not move and actually seal the glitter to the cup, I let it sit there for like a full day. And I feel that for me, I've seen a huge difference by letting it sit. Sometimes I'll go back to a cup that I Mod Podge, like maybe let's say for example like 2 hours later, and I go to epoxy it and the glitter moves a lot, because I don't actually seal my glitters unless like the glitter is very flaky and is peeling off the cup really easy. But a lot of times I'll go and press the glitter in. If I'm using the Mod Podge method, I'll go press the glitter in and kind of brush off anything that falls away. My epoxy that I use the Kresin Liquidy split because I'm impatient, and it cures to the touch within 2.5 hours on the spinner, and it's fully usable, or not usable, but you can manipulate it and touch it and move it around and start adding decals to it within 4 hours, instead of like having it spin on a turner for 6 to 8 hours. I personally just don't have time for that, so I swear by the Kresin Liquidy split. And there's no smell. If there is a smell, it's very, very mild. I personally have not had a shipment of that has had an odor to it at all. So that was what I used for the cup. Let's see. And then for the hand, I used the Crayola Model Magic air dry clay. I bought mine at Walmart in like the crafting section, kind of like where the kid stuff is, almost like where all the Crayola stuff is, but it's still like in that section of like the crafting stuff. It was like $4 or $5 I got for the bag. But I did recently find that Family Dollar sells it for $3. So I have now been going to Family Dollar to get mine. And one thing that I noticed when I bought this clay, because I also did like an Oogie Boogie cup. I did I did his cup with the first bag I bought from Walmart, and I noticed that the clay, like this is it pulled apart really easy. So it is already kind of dried out, which I thought was normal, because I used, this is my first cup, my first package I bought of it, and I thought like this type of texture of the clay was pretty normal, but apparently it's not, because I went and bought another package from the Family Dollar once I realized just how much cheaper they are, because I'm a crafter on a budget, and if I can get it cheaper, I'm going to. So when I got the one at Family Dollar, the clay itself was super easy to work with. It was, I don't want to use the word moist, but it was like, you can feel the wetness of the clay compared to the Walmart one where it was just kind of dry already. But that could just be my Walmart not going through their shipment quickly. So yours could, if you're at Walmart and just pick up a bag, yours could be just perfectly fine. But I did notice that the more feeling that it has, like the more you can feel like how it's wetter, because when I did the Oogie Boogie cup, I was applying water as I was manipulating the clay, just to kind of soften it up and kind of give me that sticky texture that I was looking for. So I had a lot of people ask me, how did I make the hand? And that's primarily what this video is about, is how I made the Freddy hand. Because like I said in the beginning, I didn't have a tutorial to follow. I kind of just literally jumped right into it and just found a picture on Google, and that's what I followed. I wanted to go for more of a realistic type of look, and so I did a lot of research on the clay itself and how to properly use it and whatnot. And I was reading a lot that it's like you don't want to paint over, seal it, or apply anything over the clay until it's fully dry, which this clay says within 24 to 72 hours it'll be fully dry, just depending on how thick you make your pieces. And that if you do paint over it with any type of paint or like a sealer, that it can deform your piece. So say you make like a snowman and you paint over it with white before it's dry, it can start like denting or cracking as it's drying and just look overall not good and make you have to redo it. But in this situation for myself, I'm kind of also impatient, and I just don't want to sit and wait for 3 days, especially when I'm have an idea in my head and I'm just going for it and not for anybody's order or anything. If it was like for an order, I'm gonna follow every single direction. That way I can make sure that it comes out completely perfect. But this was like when I made the first Freddy cup, I totally did not expect the reaction that I got when I posted it on a crafting page. And I knew it was pretty cool. I was really proud of it, but I wasn't expecting the way that it took off. And that was my own personal one at that time. That I was thinking it was gonna be my personal one, but I ended up selling it. I wanted like a distressed kind of look. I wanted it to look like it was worn. I didn't want it to look brand new, fresh, and crisp with like a nice acrylic paint on it. I didn't want that look to it. And so like right here, you'll see that it has like, that's texture from the clay drying. And that's because I pre-painted it. Like I painted it not too long after I molded it. And there's a couple spots on here where it has like more of like a stressed out kind of look, and that's so it worked in my benefit. And I noticed though, but here's where the downfall kind of is too, which still is manageable. The thumb, I did originally have it as one piece, but because of the paint and the way it dried, the thumb actually detached, so I had to reapply. I used E6000 glue to reattach the thumb to the hand. And that's actually how I got this hand onto this cup, is I just used E6000 glue. And so you can kind of see like where like kind of being premature in the painting process, how that can alter the look of what you're going for. If you want like a flat surface or like a nice clean molded image, let it dry completely. Don't take my advice and jump right into it and just do whatever you want, because then the look at the end, after waiting all that time for it to dry, might not be what you want. So that's kind of like important to know the clay that you're working with, because I know there's different types of modeling clay that you can use. This is just what I used. So anyways, what I'm going to start off doing is just kind of pressing my mold. I'm going to press my clay out depending on how thick you want it. I didn't want mine too thick. Like you can see on the cup, I don't really have it too thick, because at the end of the day it's going on a cup, and the cup has to be usable, especially depending on the charging or how you charge like for the cup. I mean, you want a cup that's going to be usable, so you don't want it to be too bulky, but yet at the same time be 3D and give it that effect that you want. So I'm just going to push on my clay and find a reference photo. I mean, that's what I would do. I'd find a reference photo just to kind of like, I just Googled Freddy Krueger hand, and I just looked at the images and found one that I wanted. I think one, it was literally just a picture of his hand, and that's what I used to mold it. And then, so what I just used my X-Acto knife once I got it all spread out. It's a little dry, so you're going to see me kind of like, because this is like just leftover clay, because I'm not making this cup for anything. I'm not making this hand to put on anything. It's just for this video only, because my clay is kind of drying out. So what I'm going to do is just make sure that it's thin enough. And I would suggest getting like a little roller, because doing this over and over, it is kind of tiring. So I'm going to push it out, make sure it's thin enough so I have extra clay. And then what I did is I just, like I said, followed a video. But for the palm part of the part, you're going to look at your own hand. That's a good way to look at it. And I'm just going to cut like the rounded border square of just this part. Kind of like if you're putting something over your hand, you just want that, like a plate, like a metal plate, you're going to cut that plate out. So that's what I'm going to do with my X-Acto knife. I just like using the X-Acto knife. You can use whatever you want. It's just easier for me. And it's okay if like it looks a little goofy. It's clay, and it is very forgiving, especially if you get a non-dried out bag. It's very forgiving, and you can mold it and fix any of the imperfections that you don't like. But in this case, the imperfections kind of make it really well. So I'm just going to kind of mold, like here's my square. Looks really rough, but that's okay because we can fix it. And I'm just going to put like a little bit of a an indent right here, stretch that out, kind of like to give it like the palm look. Like as you can see, like on my cup, I just want that little bit of a curvature there, just to kind of make it look a little designed. And mine is not going to look really good right now because I'm just making it to make it for this video, so you can kind of have an idea what to follow, or just kind of like the steps that I took in case you don't want to follow a picture. So that's kind of like what I'm left with. You can stretch that out if you want. It's important to keep in mind your cup. So like the cup that I'm using is a hog cup, and the lids are actually screw on. So it's very important to remember that, because when you screw your lid on, the drinking part of the cup goes on one particular end and it always stays the same. And so when you have your screw lid, you don't want the drinking part to be where his claws are, because that's going to make it very hard to drink out of, and a lot of times you're going to be like dribbling all over yourself if you're drinking out of it. And from a customer point of view, I wouldn't like that very much, especially if I'm paying good money for a cup like that, because a lot of sculpted cups, they're worth pretty good money. So it's important to keep in mind. But if you have like the push lid where you can change the top of any spot of the cup you want, then that's a different story. And it's also important to be checking, like say you have your cup right now with you, to be checking the size of the piece that you're making onto the cup to make sure that they're proportionate with it. Because if you have a 30-ounce cup, you're going to want it to be a little bit bigger. But if you have a 20-ounce cup or even a smaller cup than that, you're going to want it to be a little bit smaller. You don't want to put your hand all together and then put it on the cup and then realize like your hand literally swallows the cup, because that's not the point of it. You want it just like he's grabbing the side of the cup. For this reason, I'm not going to be doing that, but like this is a 30-ounce cup I've already made, and you can see just how small it is on a 30-ounce cup compared to if I grab my 20-ounce cup that I've been working on. It's kind of the right size. It's actually a little too big for this actually. If I just spread it out a little bit, it kind of fits the cup, but you can shape it. But that's why it's important to be checking your cup size, and if you have a cup, using that cup as kind of as like your sizing guide. So that's gonna be the bottom part. Don't get all beat up about it like while you're making them. Like mine looks a little wavy, but that's perfectly fine because his hand is kind of it's put together kind of. So we're gonna leave that part to the side. Next part is going to be his thumb. You can make that at any point you want to. I like to get that done over with, just so I have all the pieces at the end, because the fingers kind of take a little bit more effort, just because you have to do the fingers and the plates are like over the fingers, and then you gotta do the blades. The video or the picture that I followed, he was kind of like, his thumb was kind of like this, so that's kind of like the look I'm gonna go for. If mine looks a little weird, just ignore it. I'm not a sculptor. I can sculpt certain things, obviously, but I'm brand new to this too. This was my very first real sculpted cup besides the Oogie Boogie, and I don't really count the Oogie Boogie as a sculpted cup because that was kind of covered up, and I really feel like this one was my very first like entry into sculpting. And some people put the clay on the cup and do it that way, but because I'm using glitter on the back, it just doesn't work that way. Unless I'm gonna epoxy over it and then put the hand. But see, my thumb is kind of goofy looking, but that's okay. That's perfectly fine. Especially when you go and do yours, you can fix it however you see fit. Especially if you're using like an X-Acto knife or a sharp edge, it's really easy to cut through it and just trim off what doesn't look right. I don't know. But anyways, so we're gonna leave that thumb there. Excuse me if you hear my cat. Next we're gonna do is the fingers. And what I noticed with Freddy's fingers, they're really rounded. They're kind of like brats on his hand. Like they're kind of wide and the tips are really round. So I'm gonna roll out some clay. This is what made it easier for me. Instead of trying to like trace on the clay and cut it out, just made it easier this way. I'm not gonna go too thick, but I don't want it too thin either, because I do want some clay left like on the finger to mold it how I want want it to look. So I just cut like finger type sizes. See, so we're gonna chop 4 of them, and then on your hand, you're just gonna apply them like you would like a hand. And don't worry about the sizing, because except if they're too short, you don't have enough clay to like stretch it out, then that becomes a problem, because then you won't be able to you know, make your fingers. So move that one over. So mine looks really, it kind of looks like chalk, like school chalk. And you're gonna push the fingers, you're gonna start at the bottom and you're just gonna push them to kind of flatten them out a little bit and give them more of like the wide look to a finger. And just keep in mind your own fingers. Like, you're gonna see how, like, if you give your hand out, how they look to get a little bit shorter, and this one's kind of look a little bit longer, and that's gonna be like kind of like what you want to follow. But I'm gonna push it out, and I'm gonna really round out his tips of his fingers, because he has wide fingers. And don't stress too much about the center of the finger, because you're gonna cover that up with like the finger shields. So you're really just trying to get like just the shape of the finger down and the tip of the finger down, because if the tip of the finger kind of looks too pointy, then it kind of throws it off a little bit, just based on what I've seen so far, what I've done. You just really want that rounded bratwurst looking finger, basically. And like, just pretend you're playing with Play-Doh. Go back to like elementary school and just work it out, work the clay out. If you have a good bag of clay, then this really becomes like no problem. But this one's a little bit dried out, so this is not so easy for me right now. And as you're pushing it out, you can see how, like, you know, how your fingers sit. So you want like a little space. And it's also important to have that space in between your fingers, because when you put the cover over the finger, like the little finger plate, it's going to be tucked in here. So you're going to want just a little bit of space. I'll show you mine when I get these all pushed in. But that's pretty much what you're going to do for the fingers. And if you're actually like pushing it out and it comes up too long, cut it off. Cut it off and then round it off. And now all his fingers look exactly the same. So, I mean, honestly, once it all comes together, you really have to trust the process too with this. So right now it looks like a weird turkey, like from like elementary school when you're making those turkey hands. It's kind of like what it looks like right now, and that's okay. That's what we want, because we're about to dress them up. And not every hand's gonna look the same, you know. Your Freddy could have went through an accident, and you know, finger could be way shorter than the other ones, and that's perfectly fine. Freddy does some questionable things, and it's fine. Just trying to mold this last finger. This one's kind of looking really bratwursty. So I'm gonna make this one a little skinnier. And when you spread them out and you find out that it's just too wide and you want to take some off, don't take your finger off. Don't start all over. Just trim it off with your X-Acto knife. It's kind of like what I'm doing, because you can always add a little bit of clay, especially if good clay. Like if you have like a good pack of this clay, modeling clay, it spreads and moves out so nicely that if you make a mistake, it's so easy to fix it. So this is what I have so far. Like I said, it looks like just a weird looking turkey. And like at the end, you know, your thumb will look way better than mine. Mine kind of looks like a weird jelly bean, but the thumb will sit on it. You can always reshape it, you know, make sure it fits right. So that's what your hand's gonna start looking like. Now we're gonna work on like the finger covers, and this is where it kind of comes together. This is where like I noticed, because at first I'm like, oh man, what did I get myself into? Why am I doing this? This looks so stupid. But it comes together. So that whole saying, trust the process, because it's it really does come together. So I'm just gonna flatten out some clay, and then I'm gonna cut like strips. Like, I'll show you. I'm just gonna cut a strip, basically like a finger shield. So you're gonna cut a strip. What I do, because on my cup, also in the photos that I've seen, he has like a knuckle right here. And so this is what I'm gonna make right now. And what I did is I used my X-Acto knife and I used my little makeshift finger shield. I started at the bottom of it, and then I just pushed up some of that leftover clay, push it up to where it forms like kind of like a lump right there. And then I'm gonna come in this direction and do the same thing to just kind of bring some of that extra clay and kind of make like a speed bump. Like I said, you can mold it as you see fit. And then I just shave off any like rough edges at that bottom, because I really want that bottom plate to be straight. So this is what you're gonna end up with. And then you're gonna pick whichever finger you want, and then so like on my finger, I'm noticing that like this is just too, it's like the same size of the finger. So I'm gonna go ahead and shave off some off my thing, off the top, because if you have good clay, it's gonna spread easy. So if I place it onto my finger like this, like if I just place it, I want the knuckle to be like the crease of the finger is meets the glove, and you want that little like flat part to be right at the base of that knuckle. So think of that base, like that crease there that you made, the little speed bump, you want that to be your knuckle, and then you want that flat piece to be right here, because that's where we, like just like this, that's what we're creating right now. So I'm gonna put it on my finger right where I think it needs to go, and then I'm just gonna spread it around the finger. And you can stretch it if it's a little too short. You can cut off some of it, not the finger, but the finger plate, and just kind of cover the finger so that way, you know, the plate is covering it. And so that's what it'll look like when you get it done. And then sometimes I'll leave like a little lip here. I'll leave this little lip here because when we go to add the blades, we're gonna cut into this part, and then I like to slide my makeshift blade under this a little bit, just so there's not like, it doesn't look like you copy and pasted, you know, like you didn't just take the blade and like glue it to the finger. And I'm just gonna keep making those type of strips for all the fingers, and it's gonna be great. So I'm gonna chop that up. I'm just gonna size mine a little bit. Probably better to size it once you spread it out, because once you make that little lump for the knuckle, it does make your little strip a little longer, I noticed. And I like to like overlap my bottom plates. I'll show you. But I like to overlap them because it gives it more look. I'm gonna repeat this whole step of like making, and if yours is too short, like I said, just stretch it to make it fit. So that's how I did mine. Oh, that was a little jacked up. And then I like to overlap them a little bit, just like I did on these ones. Just a little bit, not too much, just to give it a little bit more texture. And that's what we're gonna keep doing. I have 2 more fingers. And then once I do that, we're just gonna add like the little embellishments. And honestly, oh, and then we have to do the blades. And that's really like all you're doing. That's how easy this cup actually is. It's easy, but it does take time. Like now that I know exactly my step process, I've cut my time down dramatically, but I still have to take all the time to, you know, do this and then paint them and assemble them and glitter the cups. So at the end of the day, it does take a lot of time to do these type of cups. But once you have your groove down, you have your groove down. Like honestly, you have your groove down. And it doesn't really take time to find your groove either. Because I made now 4 of these. Because like I said, I wasn't expecting the reaction I got. I mean, I was expecting like a good reaction because I was really proud of myself for making this cup. Especially with how it turned out. I was very proud of myself. Because I didn't, honestly, when I going into it, I didn't think I could do it. And then seeing the outcome of it, oh, I couldn't wait to share it. And then once I shared it, it just was such a great reaction. And if you came from one of those crafting groups, please drop a comment down below and let me know how this video, if it was helpful for you, or anybody that's watching this, if this is helpful for you, please let me know. This is my first video on this channel, so please bear with me. You know, my setup and everything's gonna get better, and I'm gonna have better videos. This is just the first one because I know this is becoming a popular cup right now, and I just want to get this out there so that way people can start making it and feel proud of themselves like I felt proud of myself. Because that's my favorite part of this, is like knowing how scared I am to do some things like cups and whatnot, because like I said, I'm a crafter on a budget and I hate wasting money. And I feel my time is very important too. And a lot of times, a lot of the cups that I make, I just make them because I have an idea in my head. I've honestly never really followed a tutorial besides doing the epoxy pens. Those, I almost threw those out the window when I first started doing them, but then I watched a tutorial and that really did help me. And now I love making them. And I like sharing what I do, because sometimes in my tips, sometimes I do things a little, what I've heard of, like some people say that you're not supposed to do, I do those anyways. It just works for me. To each their own. And like I said, back to this hand, you're just gonna do this for the rest of the fingers. I'm just trimming off where I think it's just a little too long. Sorry, that was loud. I'm just gonna push it down, and then when you're done with it, you're gonna have that. Just like making those strips, making the little hills. But you see how not so important the look of the fingers are, because it comes together when you put the shield on. And then I can always, you know, manipulate it if I want to. Cut off a little bit of the corner to make the fingers wider. Like, you can manipulate and do this how it works in your head. I'm gonna make the little embellishments, like the little round circles, kind of make like the glove, like attachments, I guess. What I did for the bottom part of the glove, where the bottom dot is, I wanted to look like the I wanted to make it look like the button was actually pushed into the hand. So I used the bottom of my X-Acto knife and I just kind of pushed in like that. So that when I put the little circle button on it, it kind of looks like it was pushed into the glove. And also be cautious, or not cautious, but like be aware of the size of your buttons that you're making, because if they're too big, I mean, they're not supposed to take away from the look of the glove. If they're too big and they take away from the look of your glove, it kind of make it look like a little like dollar store-y, I guess, and look like a fake glove. But if they're like the right size, then it makes it a little more realistic then. And you can always like take the little buttons off and make new ones. So we're gonna do them all for like the fingers as well. He has like a little button or attachment for each of those little fingers. I'm gonna just roll a little piece. If you can hear my dog over there, I'm sorry. Oops. Stella, stop. Thank you. Oh. So that's what you're gonna be left with. Like you're gonna have all your little embellishments. I like these little ripples in it. If you want to work with yours and smooth that out, you do that. I feel like it gives it more of like a used look once it dries and you paint it. So I don't stress about that part. I think it adds more detail to the paint. Okay, So the last step, well, besides fixing that thumb, the last step we're gonna make is the blades. So for the finger parts, because like for mine, I wanted it to kind of look, I guess this one doesn't kind of show what I was trying for. So I wanted it to look like the blade goes kind of into the glove itself. So I'll lift just a little bit of this on all the fingers, just to make sure there's some gap. And then I'm gonna use my knife, and I'm gonna start in the middle of the finger, like just right in the middle. And I'm just gonna do like a slice mark, but when you do the slice mark, you're not slicing through the finger. You're just kind of creating that slice. And then I'm going to use the blade. I'm going to push to the sides on each side, kind of open it up like you're making like a canal. I'll show you. Kind of like that. You're just pushing the clay away from each side. Not by much. You want to be careful with it because you don't want to ruin your finger. And then I'm going to roll out, kind of like what we did with the fingers, but this time I'm going to go with a lot thinner. But don't go too thin, because if you make your blades too thin, because I personally wanted to go for a thinner blade look than what I've seen a lot of other people do. They do like those really big blades, and to each their own. I personally wanted to go more with like an edgier, kind of worn out blade, really thin. But the way this clay dries, if you go too thin, once it dries, it will crack and it will break. So I'm gonna go ahead. I make the tip part really thin, kind of like this, and then I'm just gonna kind of slide it in to that spot where that opening I made, and the part under the little glove cap. I'm gonna push it down so it's secure, pull that glove part over it, and kind of just push it and mold it into the finger, just like that. And this is like what I was saying earlier about keeping your cup around you, because you're gonna want to size your claws, making sure that your claws aren't too long, because if once you cut it or once you let them dry, it doesn't really look good it's hard to shape them later on. For this reason of this video, I'm not using it for anything. I'm just making it for this video, so I'm not going to worry about the size of the claws. But keep in mind the size of your claws, because you don't want them to be hanging off your cup, and then it just won't look right. So we're going to do that for all the fingers. We're just going to cut right in, not all the way through the finger, not too deep, because once it dries, it can possibly crack your finger, your clay finger. Make that little canal, roll out my claw, I'm going to slide it in there and push down. And I like it when it's like not super straight in there, like it kind of bent a little bit. I think it adds texture and character. I don't think it's a bad thing, and I don't care if my claws are a little crooked, I guess. Like, I'll show you. Mine kind of waved out a little bit right here, and then I'll cut it, and then I'll just roll it back out. See, it's not like a straight claw, kind of bent. I think it works perfect. But it's all up to your image and what you're wanting your finger to look like and your Freddy claw to look like. Keep in mind that your claws, when they come out, you don't want this one to be as long as this one, because then that just won't look right. It won't look proportionate. So you're going to want your fingers, your claws to kind of, you know, be natural like claws are. I don't know, or that's if you're going for that kind of look. I don't know if his pinky ones are longer than the other one, or as long as the other blades, or if they are proportionate to his hand. That I'm not sure. I just think it looks cooler on these cups, and looks a little less bulky in my opinion. But we all have creative differences, and this is just how I made this cup, and you can take this technique or this. Sorry about that, my dog just kind of went crazy. But you can take this technique and make it your own technique. You can do whatever you feel works for you. So we're just gonna work on the last finger. I'm gonna roll out the bottom clay. And then I'm gonna slide it in there, push it down. I really need to fix this thumb. I don't really know what's so wrong with it. It just doesn't look right. Okay. So when you're done, you're gonna have like a Freddy claw. And I mean, that's just really all it took to make it. I worked in pieces. When you're painting it, so another way to do it is by doing it in pieces like we did, but not assembling it together and waiting for it to dry, because then when you go to paint it, it will be easier to paint it. But I personally put it all together and just kind of be very careful painting, because, you know, his fingers are different color than the actual glove part itself. And then what I did do before I put this on the cup is I made sure I painted, like, I'll paint all the edges so that way when I do lay it down on the cup, you don't see any of the white clay. But when I put the cup on here, it did spread out a little more than I planned for it to, so I have to go back in and touch up with the parts where it wasn't painted and now it's showing. But that's really it. I'm definitely open for any questions. I can give advice, or if you have anything you'd like to add, or if there's anything you'd like to see, or really anything, just go ahead and comment below. Like I said, this is my first video, so it's just not set up the way I hoped it would be set up for, but I want to get this out there quickly for everybody to see how to make it so they can start crafting a Freddy Krueger cup. But that's what I did. I'll leave the materials I use in the description. I do have a TikTok that I use if you would like to go follow me on there. I used it for a while, a long time ago, and now I kind of switched it to more of my crafting stuff. So I post a lot of the cups that I make on there. So it'd be really cool if you go over there and give me a follow. I do have a Facebook business page that I use. I'm not super active on there, but I do try to post cups and pens and door signs, little things I'm making. Like right now I'm starting to do my Halloween car coasters and things like that, and I will be planning to do more tutorials. So if there's like a type of cup that you've been wanting to see made, just leave it down in the comments and I can see if I've already made it and do a tutorial on it, or we can learn together. I do plan on doing Facebook lives or potentially YouTube lives, just to kind of, maybe we can do like kind of like a master class, or like we all get the materials and we sit down and go on live and do it all together in the steps and we learn together. So that's something I've been thinking about doing. But yeah, so I'll leave all my information down in the description. I'll leave the materials that I used. A lot of these things, I don't know how available they are, because a lot of the glitters and stuff like that, they're over a year old, so they could be renamed, but it kind of give you an idea exactly what I'm using for. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching this. Let me know down in the comments if this video helped you at all, or made this type of process easy for you. I hope this helped. But go ahead and leave me a comment if you can. Like and share this video. That would definitely help me out, especially since this is a new channel and I do really want to keep posting tutorials and just quick videos. This one's not super quick because it was a sculpted 3D video, but we can definitely do other steps like prepping, cup prepping, and like I do want to do a video of this one soon. It's my fall sweater weather cup. Every single inch of this cup was Modge Podge and glittered. I did not use double-sided tape. This is not a ribbon or a wrap. This is literally all hand glittered. So I really do want to do a cup tutorial on this, and maybe even do like the Oogie Boogie one. I thought might be a fun one to do. But just let me know if there's any type of cups out there that people are doing and you haven't really found a tutorial. Let me know and I can definitely work on that for you. But anyways, thank you again for watching this video. I definitely appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next one.